How you doing, Dave? You all right, mate?
Yeah, good. You okay?
Yeah, good. So, what have you been up to this week? I seen you did a bit of judging last week, didn't you?
Judging and teaching. Dan's still away, so I've got a lot of dogs to look after still. So busy looking after dogs and teaching and judging all sorts of things.
Didn't do the champ this weekend. I didn't see you up there. That's what you were teaching instead, were you?
Yeah, I decided to teach instead. Wasn't really a bit of me, just small rings and just it wasn't up for it.
That's fair enough. I mean, the winter shows definitely are. They're a little bit smaller in size, aren't they? But be fair, the ring sizes were decent. Fair play. I got to give it to them.
Yeah, I still saw some videos. It didn't look as bad as what I was expecting. Actually, it's not the show's fault. It's just I'm not a fan of indoor shows unless it's like Dog Sports Diary or something where you've got all that space and nice long rings.
Yeah, it's definitely got a different vibe to it, isn't it?
Oh, definitely.
You've been doing something recently with a group of you called Love the Lines, haven't you? What's that about?
Oh, so basically, I think we were coming back from a show one day, and Dan was in the van moaning like he likes to about how he couldn't off his courses, and because the courses were just they were dangerous. It wasn't just that we didn't like them; they were dangerous for dogs that go as fast as like Boffin does. So we was like, well, I want to do something about it. So we just came up with the idea of us doing free workshops. Me, Becky, Martin, and Neil. Like we asked them all, everyone was up for it, and we're just trying to educate people on safe lines and flowing more modern courses, I would say. So more likely to get internationally and in Europe, especially, just because it's so much nicer we feel for the dogs. So that was the whole point of it, because we just want to be able to run more classes ourselves when we go to shows that we don't feel are going to damage our dogs.
Yeah, it makes sense, and it's gone over pretty well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Everyone's loved it. All the feedback's been really positive. Obviously, the first couple of weeks, we got better on each one we did. I think we changed our presentations a little bit on each one, depending on the feedback we got. So we're trying to, we're very much trying to go for the safety route, because if we just went in and went, oh, we just like the courses because that's what we think's better, then obviously people are going to go, oh, they're just trying to do it just to suit their own dogs so they can win more. That's really wasn't the point of it. The point
Yeah.
of it was massively on a safety aspect, trying our hardest to just make the courses as flowy and safe as possible, because agility has changed so much. Like I've been doing it 30 years, it's changed so much, and the speed of the dogs now is insane, and we have to keep up with that course design because it for safety aspect of it, because it's just courses. If you ran the fast dogs these days over courses we got 30 years ago, they would just kill themselves. I truly believe it.
Yeah, I mean, people say, oh, yeah, but maybe you just need to add more control in. But from my point of view, if you've got a sport that is decided by time, people are going to try to go faster. Simple as that, really.
Exactly. Everyone's going to try and go faster. If you want to win, and everyone wants to win, why would you do a competitive sport if you didn't want to really win, or at least do well in some respect? And so, of course, it's all about speed. Yes, it's about accuracy as well, but you can have speed and accuracy. The courses we get a lot here in the UK just don't always encourage the speed aspect, and it's more control. And yes, our dogs can generally do them as well. It's not like we don't ever go clear in the UK, but they're just not as fun for the dogs. And I do think it's a lot more physical pressure on their bodies, and I just don't think it's very good for them.
How many shows did you judge last year? You judged a few, didn't you?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't keep track. I've got a lot more this year because I'm trying to get my champ status. So I'm trying to judge. I've got like 10 or so shows this year that I'm doing. I'm just trying to get it all done in one year so I can hopefully become a champ judge. But it doesn't mean I'm only going to judge champs in the future. I just want to be able to. I still want to judge the lower grades as well. And I think that's a big problem in the UK, is the maybe more experienced people don't always want to judge the lower grades. So then the lower grades aren't getting the best courses, because as you go up the grades, I do think the courses improve because they generally get the more experienced judges. I'm not sure, but that's how I feel. So I do still want to judge the lower grades as well, just because so can give them the younger dogs a better course and more flowy and more fast.
I've judged a couple of shows this year as well. And my thing for me is like, I find it quite difficult because I always second guess myself of what is appropriate. So
Yeah.
for yourself, what are the things that you consider when you are designing a course, and like the things that would concern you? So where do you start? How or where do you start?
Well, I usually start because I'm awful at designing courses on paper. I hate it. I hate just having a blank piece of paper and doing it. So I usually start by looking at some courses from some judges that I really respect, like Tamas, Yoke, all these people abroad, even some from Neil. And I just get a little ideas, a couple of ideas. I really like that little section. I might steal that, and then I just work around that section. Is what I tend to do because unless I've got something in my head that I already want to test, I'm just really bad. That's just how my brain works. I'm bad with a blank sheet of paper, or obviously not paper. I'm talking old fashioned here, but I'm bad with a blank screen. So that's how I generally go. Still, even if it's just like a dog walk jump section, I think, oh, I'll just do that, and then I'll work around that. So I'm a bit of a thief, like to steal ideas. That's why I don't really call myself a
Inspiration, Dave.
I
Inspiration. That's
know
what I
it's
mean.
inspiration. Yeah, I'm not a thief. And then yeah, I just work around that. But what I don't like seeing is so what I would never put is tight distances. I don't put particularly curved tunnels. So in UK you see dogs falling over in tunnels all the time. I judged and taught all day. So Friday I judged, Saturday and Sunday I was teaching, and I didn't have one dog fall over in one tunnel because they were all on such nice curves. There was nothing that was too tight. There was no C shapes. They weren't coming in on awkward angles where they're going to be off the wrong lead leg. And not one dog fell over in one tunnel. And I think that's hugely important, is keeping the tunnels safe for our dogs.
Yeah, for me, I have a couple of things that really annoy me when I see them on a course. The one thing that I always find happens, and I don't want to say it's only in the UK, because obviously I haven't got experience of competing every weekend internationally as well, but it seems that like we design for tunnels to like reduce the speed of our dogs. So
Yes,
like
that's
it
that.
teaches them to slow down going into a tunnel, and it drives me mad when like you're in the lower grade courses and there's like these tight tunnel turns on straight
Yeah,
tunnels. And then
yeah.
we wonder why we're against people who are international abroad and their dogs fly into tunnels and fly out, and ours are kind of almost
Going in.
tiptoeing in.
Yeah, 100%. And they do that. They call the tunnels, when they judge abroad, they say the tunnels are an accelerator because that's what they use them as, to shoot them around a nice fast curve. Whereas here we use them as a decelerator because partly because our rings are a bit smaller, it doesn't help. But people just seem to put them in such a tight angle. Like when Commotion came out, he was so big and strong. Every tunnel he fell over in, every single one, because partly I hadn't trained those tight angles because he went in so, and that was the problem. I think I taught him to go so fast because that's what kind of courses I was hoping he'd get. And then all of a sudden he had short, tight ones, and I was like, I should have trained him those too. But I shouldn't have to, but I do because that's what everyone says. But
Yeah.
I don't like it. Even if I had trained it, he'd still go in too fast because that's the kind of dog he is.
The other thing that does annoy me, and again, it might just be a personal thing, and people might say that it's a skill that I needed to train or whatever the case may be. And that not necessarily wrong, but it's still something that annoys me, is when you've got a nice line of extension, but the gaps between the jumps get smaller as you go down it. It just
Big
doesn't
thing
make
on
any
this.
sense. I don't get it. I don't get why you do it.
People don't understand striding, and we did a big thing of this. And I was that was my section on the Love the Lines, was about distances. And I showed videos of when I was running Fame when she was young, almost flicking herself inside out. Her back legs come up so high because the distances were so horrible. And it does create that hyperextension because you get some dogs that are going to just bash through things and don't care. Like Commotion probably just bash through it, not care. With Fame, we tried to put stride in, try and literally her back legs would be almost vertical, trying to keep the poles up, poor thing. And when that happens, and we talked a lot about this because I am an osteopath as well. Not everyone knows that, but I did actually go to uni. I do
You can
have a
say
brain
that
in there.
louder if you want. You don't have to whisper it.
I am really clever. So I really am. So, and it does compress all the spine. It compresses those intervertebral discs. You're going to get disc bulges, and I think a lot of dogs these days are coming up with back issues in agility. And I think a huge part of that is crashing into tunnels because they're going full speed into a corner, both all that compression, and jumps that are too close and them having to hyperextend, or just weird angles so they can't take off nicely and smoothly because they have to flick their bodies so differently to try and get over the jumps. And I really believe it because Dobby had a adult disc bulge and he had to retire young. And the first thing I noticed when he obviously was starting to be in pain was he just kept pulling off tunnels. I kept doing it, and I was like, why is when he go in the tunnel? Like at the time I had no idea what was wrong with him, of course, but it was the first thing he did was pull off pull off tunnels because he obviously didn't like going in and hitting the wall because it obviously hurt on his back, or the fact he was slipping over in them and twisting. So I do think tunnels, if we could see what went on in there, if they were all clear, I think people would realize how they must put them at a nicer angle and think about the lines in and the lines out, because I really think it damages a lot of dogs.
Yeah, just this the smoothness of the tunnel generally, isn't it? Rather than making it like a really sharp U shape, kind of like smooth it out if possible. I think.
Absolutely, just those nice soft curves, not an L shape. Martin talked about this a lot in his. We are going to put these presentations online when I get around to it, but they're quite long. Martin talks a lot about that when you've got a long tunnel and then a little L at the end, so it looks like that. So they come flying in full speed and then boof right into a corner and tiny little exit. And Sean had that at Olympia this year, and the dog came out and really hurt himself because I think the tunnel had moved so much. It was actually set up quite nicely, and then it moved so much at Olympia they don't really have time to keep adjusting it between each dog.
Yeah.
So he ended up in L shape, and it was just they're really dangerous. They really are.
It gets mentioned a lot, and I think that some people don't actually understand it. So here's your chance to straighten it out. Lead leg changes. How would you explain that to someone who doesn't understand it? And then how would you make sure that you're kind of designing with that in mind then?
So Becky talked a lot about this in her talk, which was actually a really good one. So lead leg. So if they're basically on their right lead leg, if you look at their front legs, if you come from a horsey background, it's really obvious because horses are bigger striding and slower, so it's easier to see. But their front right leg will be more forward than their left. So if on their right lead, going around the corner, their inside leg is going to be more forward for the balance. It's all about balance. So if they try and run around the right corner and they're on their left lead, that inside leg is going to be further back, so then that's when they slip. So if you get a lot of S lines and dogs aren't, so a lot of lead leg changes and dogs aren't very good at it. Some dogs just aren't good at leg changing. Others get it easy. Then you get them trying to do a corner on the wrong lead leg, and that's when you get a slip because they haven't got that balance, that leg to stabilize them that's out on the inside. So like if you go into a tunnel, like I don't generally tend to like rear crossing tunnels because of this, because they go in on the wrong lead and then the curve's the wrong way. So they're going in left lead, and then they suddenly in the middle of the tunnel they have to change leads, and if they don't, and it's slippery, and they're on the wrong lead, that's when they fall over and slip and crash. And that's the same with any change of lead leg. They're on the wrong lead and they try and suddenly change to go to an awkward jump. That's when you get dogs falling over and slipping, especially when the ground isn't good. So not so bad, I think, if it's really good ground, but definitely if it's a bit slippery, a bit wet, the ground's too dry, you're going to see dogs falling over more often, and it's hugely or partly because of the lead leg changes that they are either struggling with or not doing quick enough. And the more leg changes they have to do, obviously dogs are going to have to lead leg change around the course, but the more they have to do on weird, awkward lines, the more unbalanced they're going to be and the more stress that's going through their bodies.
So playing devil's advocate then, is that something you should be training more, or is it just something that should be considered when designing too?
Can you train your dogs? I mean, you can set up sequences to test that, to make them do it, but some dogs just can't do it. And I'm always generally trying to set up for the dogs that can't do things so well. So the dogs that can do it all are obviously going to be able to get around every course, but you don't get, we're very lucky if you get a dog like that. And it doesn't. Fame was very much like that. She could kind of adjust easily. Susan's like that, but the big, more powerful, faster boys, especially, really do struggle with things like that. So with leg changes, especially. So it's not wrong to put leg changes in. Of course, you're not just going to all run around the whole thing on one leg, but it's just kind of not putting them in too close together, I think, is the point of it. And yes, you can train for it. I suppose you could just set those up more, but it's so much more stress on their bodies and risking injuries happening when they're slipping and sliding all over the place.
It's like you say, I think it's a bit of both, isn't it? Obviously, you show the dog it, try to get them comfortable doing it, but obviously you'd like to think that a judge has at least considered it. The one that I always found was really awkward was when they put, and I've had it a couple of times on lower grade courses, which I thought made it really awkward because the dog has already got less experience, where they put the dog on, for example, a right lead leg going on to a dog walk with a minimum distance. So they haven't really got any, it's already on. And then you get a sharp turn the other way off it. So they've got to change lead leg on it. And for a young dog, I feel like that's quite difficult to do.
When I'm training a running dog walk, I don't tend to I don't do so. I just send around rings on pivots to start with.
Yeah.
So quite later on, when I'm good at the dog walk, I'll send around on a front cross, because a front cross they have to change lead leg quite often. It just changes everything when they have to lead leg change onto or off a dog walk. So to start with, they don't add it in until later on when they're more stable on it. But if you haven't had the dog that's learned to stabilize on it and they've got a lead leg change over it to come off the different direction, then if they come around on a left leg and on a front cross and they've got to go off on a right lead, then they've got to change lead legs somewhere. A clever dog, an experienced dog, might change before they get on because they can see you're on that side of them. Because dogs will tend to be on the lead leg that the handler is on, because they're generally going to be curving into us. But dogs that don't have that experience might not do it. Try to change lead leg either before it, after it, on it, and then that's when you get accidents happening.
Yeah, it was quite interesting what you said then about designing for a certain dog. I can't actually remember which judge said this, so I can only apologize, because this is obviously her. And I was a woman as well, because I remember thinking, oh, she's made a good point there. But I remember her saying that she designed for the biggest striding Malinois, because then for every other dog, she would hope that the lines were still safe. And I thought that was just a good way of looking at it.
Yeah, that's what I said that I think in my talk as well. I design for the bigger, more powerful dogs, because the smaller, steadier ones are always going to manage it because they're shorter striding. It's the big, powerful ones that are going. We get loads of them in agility, especially at the top levels now. That are, especially like Malinois, they're the ones that are going to struggle more, because it's just they're too big. They're not too big, but they are too big for shorter distances and lots of lead leg changes. They are going to struggle a lot more.
Yeah, for sure. And like the other thing that is quite interesting when it comes to competition in UK, we often see trends. Now, for me, last year, the trend, which I hadn't seen much previously, and it's not to say it wasn't around, but the trend was wrapping the first jump, or collection stride on the first jump, and then you go. Now, I would say 2 or 3 years ago, I maybe saw that once, and then last year there was lots of it.
I think it's partly because ring size in the UK, because obviously you can have more space on the start if you can wrap the first jump rather than sit miles back in a wait. So I think a lot of people are doing it for that, but also it's just, I think, time wise as well,
Yeah.
where it doesn't waste time, everyone leading out on a wait. I quite like it. I like setting it because it like more space, and the fact I don't have to wait for everyone to try and do a wait for 10 hours.
Yeah.
I've not got much patience with that. I think it's good that they're training their weight, and I want them to have a weight, but it's irritating as well when you just want to get through the dog sometimes. So I think I quite like it, but it'll probably change again in a couple more years. It won't be such a big thing, but it is at the moment, you're right, it's an absolute massive thing that lots of people are saying that.
So what do you think is the next trend? Because I've got an opinion of what I've started seeing more already.
A lot of layering,
That's
lot
exactly,
of layering. Oh my God.
that's
I'm
exactly
teaching,
what I was going to say.
yeah, I'm going to start teaching a layer cue because it's coming in more and more. Obviously abroad, and I can hopefully need it for international events if I get there. So not so much here, I don't think. We don't always have the space for it, and I'm not sure judges really look at that yet, but it will eventually drift in. I like a natural layer where you don't really have to tell them to layer. Their natural line will take them to the obstacle that you ask them to go to. So I quite like doing that, but I'm not a big unnatural layer is I'm not a big fan of, to be honest, to teaching your dogs to shoot off away from you all the time. And that's where I think you need to change. If you're doing layering, you would need to adjust your course for different height dogs, because a large dog will layer a hell of a lot easier than a little small dog because their striding is totally different. So if I was setting course with layering in, I'd make it very much more obvious that the thing they've got to go to is more in their line as they land. So I want them to be able to see the obstacle they're going to once they land. Even if there's something that's in between us, I still want them to be able to see the one I want them to send to. So obviously a large dog might be able to see it, a little dog would land short and maybe not be able to see it. So therefore I would adjust the course accordingly depending on the height of the dog.
But it's an interesting point that you said that. I mean, personally, I would say in an ideal scenario that, okay, what would you say then with regards to should every course change depending on the height?
Not every course, just the ones that are going to the land. You got to look at takeoff and landing spots. I talk a lot about that in my talk on Love the Lines as well. Some people, I could probably tell you within 3 foot everywhere my dogs are going to take off and land on a course.
Yeah,
probably 2 foot. I just know where they're going to do. I think coming from a horsey background maybe helps a bit. I can just really see takeoff and landing spots, and some people can't see that, which is when they set awkward lines because they have no idea where dogs are going to land. So if people only ever run a small dog and are trying to judge a large course, I truly believe they don't have the experience of how to set a good line, or they need to watch a lot more large dogs and figure it out, because it is all about takeoff and landing spots and how dogs move. And if you haven't had that experience, it's really hard to set a flowing course.
Yeah, I always think that you can kind of tell the type of dog that a judge has from the course they set, because that's their
Of course.
experience, isn't it? That's what they think it would work for them, essentially. You know, that's the whole
Yeah,
reason that I started judging, is because I wanted to put courses out that I liked to run. So, you know, it kind of makes sense that everyone else is the same. They want to put courses out that they would like to run. So it gives you a good insight as to the type
of
of
course.
dog
And I'm
you're
not
running.
saying every course should be massive, open, flowy, fast. I like courses that are open and fast, but also quite clever, because there's a lot of courses these days are just speed. And if you've got a fast dog and you're a fast handler, you can get around it. And yes, they're fun to run. I do enjoy it, but I also like to see skills tested and obstacle discrimination and things like that, because just running and pointing is fun, but it's not going to be for everyone. I totally get that. So I do want to see dogs actually have skills trained to them as well.
Because you liked, again, going into the courses from the summer, there was a big discussion about the large final course at the AWCs, and you quite like that, didn't you?
I did like it. I think I would change a couple of the lines because they were a little bit awkward, but I don't think it was dangerous. And that's a big thing for me, is not being dangerous for the dogs. No dogs really crashed wings or did anything I would say would cause a lot of injury. But and lots of people didn't like it because it was hard, really hard. But it's the AWC, like it's got to be hard, like it's the pinnacle of our sport. So I think it was great, and the dogs that did it, nice. The handlers that had trained their dog skills, it was beautiful to watch. So yes, I personally may not have set some of those lines up, but I don't think they were dangerous, and I think it worked really well for the dogs that had the skills to do it. So I don't feel like there's anything wrong with it so long as it's not dangerous. Some of the faster courses we had at the AWC this year, dogs were whacking wings and crashing into things. I think that's far more dangerous than making it a little bit harder and slightly more difficult line. Like it's what you prefer, isn't it?
Yeah, and like, but the people who won the large agility, I don't think anyone could say that they were just runners, because on that course you
No,
couldn't be just a runner. Your dog had to have skills.
couldn't get there. People were trying to get there to help with the weave entry and stuff, which was, if you didn't watch it, everyone, you had to layer a dog walk for like 20 miles away and send to a weave entry on the first line. People were trying to do all sorts of things to get there to help their dogs do it, and it was just pretty much impossible. You had to just layer the dog walk and send. I think a couple of people may have done it another way and managed it, but it was not easy. So yeah, you couldn't just be a runner and get around that course. You had to have some dog skills.
But it was relentless as well, wasn't it? Because there was,
Yeah, it was.
you do one bit that was like really difficult, and it might be really difficult for a dog training point of view, and then the next bit was really difficult from a handling point of view, and then the next bit was really different from a discrimination point of view, and it was just,
Exactly how I think AWC should be. Not
yeah,
just, a good combination this year with the judges, because you had one judge who was setting really fast and flowy, which was great, and I love his courses, and this one that was setting a bit more technical and hard. And I think it was a very good, they complemented each other, because if you just get everything fast and flowing or everything really hard, it's going to be a bit boring. Dog fail after dogs failing after dogs failing. We had so many clears in the jumping that the agility then became really fun to watch, because it was a lot tougher. So I enjoyed the two judges working together like that. I think honestly, once it started, people were saying like there weren't any clears to start with. People were like, it's going to have to change course, going to have to change course. Even I said at the start, I thought maybe no one's going to go clear. I really was worried that they weren't going to get one, because it did seem impossible. Then all of a sudden, I can't remember, it was maybe Teresa
I think
went
it was
clear, and I was
Teresa,
like,
yeah,
oh, it can be done, easy,
yeah.
go for it. It's not at all easy, but once I saw it could be done, I was like, oh no, actually, I'm really enjoying this course now. I just needed some really good dog skills.
What about judges then? Like, you've mentioned a couple that you like. Do you have favorite judges, or do you just have a group that you really, I guess, that are your favorites, I suppose, but domestically and internationally? Who would you say are ones to look out for people who are thinking, who should I look at?
Domestically, I like obviously Neil's courses. I like Becky's courses, and that's why we picked them for the other lines. I think they're really clever designs. You know, Neil judges all over the world now, so he talks to a lot of the best judges internationally. The difference is international judges as well. They get so much more training. I'm not blaming people in this country for not always setting the best course. They haven't been trained to. Like, it's hard to set courses. I don't like designing courses on paper. It's really hard. And if you don't have the experience, then it's not an easy job. So, you know, abroad, we have here in UK, we have like a weekend's course or something, and they hardly talk at all about course design. It's more about judging the rules and all that kind of stuff, which we didn't go into on Other Lines at all. So abroad, they can have like 2 or 3 years coaching on it sometimes. You know, they get so much more coaching in most countries than we do on how to actually design a course. Partly, I think that's because we need so many more judges, so it's easy just to quickly get them through. But I think people do need to be taught more, and people like you know, there are online courses. Tamas and a few of his friends do an online course, and I think the people that have done that definitely have a better idea of course design, so people could educate themselves doing things like that. So Tamas is definitely one of my favorite judges in the world. Yoke from Sweden, from Sweden, I think. These are amazing courses. I think they're really fast, but also really clever. They've got a lot of skills tested in there. You don't just have to run and point. And this country, like Neil and Becky, a couple of others, but they were the ones that really stand out for me.
Yeah, I think that's you named a couple of my favorites there. I like Peter Pupik. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Yeah, but Yoke as well. Yeah, I like his. Am I saying that right or am I not?
Yoke?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's right. I'm not sure about Pupik.
What am I
Not
saying?
sure.
Is it not Peter or is it Petter or?
It's Peter. Oh God, we don't know. We haven't got any of his name right. I think it is Petter.
Yeah, it's the pronunciation is a little bit off, but I blame that on my accent.
Yeah, no one can understand you anyway.
Okay, so to round off the shows every week, we're going to have a little section, and it is probably the most important part of the talk. And it's the Agility Net question of the week. There's some important stuff happening there on a weekly basis, Dave, and I just want to find your opinion on it. So get yourself ready for that. But first, I know this is going to be tough to believe, but I've prepared a little musical segment to lead us in that people can look forward to week in, week out. You ready?
Artist. Okay, I'm ready.
Agility question of the week. So what do you think? That was actually me. I know it's hard to believe.
Well, I'm just going to be polite and say I loved it.
Yeah, it's probably for the best. Okay, so the question this week, really take your time because there's going to be a lot of people waiting on your answer.
I'd like to hear it.
What are the best trousers for agility?
Male or female?
Oh, I wasn't specified.
Oh,
we go in unisex. What can you do? What have you got?
Well, I'd say for men, not leggings.
I reckon you'd look good in a pair of Lululemons.
I mean, I probably could pull it off, but not everyone can. I'm just not a big fan of leggings on men, even if they wear shorts over the top. Haven't I seen you have that look?
No, you have not.
Oh, it's obviously in my dreams. So no leggings for men or tight trousers. You know, slim but not too tight.
I was going to say Martin is known for some tight trousers, isn't he?
I wasn't going to bring Martin up again because I picked on him last time, but yes, it makes things maybe look bigger than they really are.
Oh, okay. Exaggeration trousers, we'll call them.
Yeah, that's why he likes to wear them.
Yeah.
For women, I mean, obviously they want to be streamlined because they've got to run fast.
Yeah.
And I have not got a problem with leggings, but maybe the ones that are a bit overstretched and you can see through them, I personally wouldn't want to wear. But, you know, everyone has a preference. So, and I quite like the colourful leggings. Makes them stand out.
I was going to say, some people like to give a little taste of what's underneath though, Dave, as well.
Maybe that's what it is. Sometimes there's nothing underneath, which is what the problem is.
Well, you just said they've got to be streamlined. They're just getting less weight on them so they can go faster.
Maybe not overstretched, or if they are overstretched, a thicker material. And obviously keep checking for a camel toe.
There you go.
Because nobody wants that.
No one needs to see that.
Especially a gay man.
Yeah.
Don't want
Keep that for your personal lives.
That
there
is
you
the
have it.
horror movie.
That is the Agility Net question of the week answered. And on that, we will say goodbye. So see you guys later.
See you next time.
Ta-da.